Hello there, this is Heirs to the Kingdom channel, and in today's lesson we're doing chapters 38 and 39 in the book of Job. If you're new to this, is the Bible study channel going through the King James Bible, not skip anything as Scripture's command. So if you would, please like, subscribe, and share this content, and let's get started. So, like I was saying before, God's going to talk to Job himself. Job has finished speaking. Then it's Elihu character, this youngin, came onto the scene, started speaking, and says, just hear me out. I'm full of wisdom, blah, blah, blah. You're elders than me, but you need to listen to me. Hear me. I'm going to tell you the trueness of God and who you truly are. Slandering Job, not knowing the real situation, doing, same thing the others were doing, which was bearing false witness. Now the other ones were saying, you clearly must have done something. Elihu just flat out said, you did do something. And this angers God a lot. It's like, pretty much they're telling Job, you're not good enough to follow God. That you're clearly, something's wrong with you. And Job's like, I know who I am. And I know who God is. So I just don't know why this has befallen upon me. That's all. It's like, what happened? That's all, he keeps asking, and no one would sit and pray with him and say, God, show us the answer. What happened? We know Job. He's a good man. He's a godly, righteous man. He lives life godly and righteous. We've watched his acts. We watched his life. We've known him for decades. No, they didn't do that. They just wanted to kick a dog when it was already down. It's called kicking a dead dog, kicking a lion dog, beating a dead horse. It has many sayings. Unjustly judging is one thing God hates. It's bearing false witness. You're saying things about somebody you don't know anything about. His friends did it. Elihu's done it worse than them. It's Scriptures always talks about this. Jesus talks about it. Judge not ye, for ye will be judged. Now, if you are a witness and you know what's going on because you've seen their actions, that's one thing. That's not judging somebody. That's pointing out facts. But we are to know a tree by the fruit that it bears. Job's fruit was always godly. So that means he's godly regardless of what his life is. Elihu's fruit that he just, showed on display was worldly, with the deception of godly in there. Let's go ahead and get started here. Chapter 38, verse 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare, if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Or who shut up the sea with doors, when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb? When I made the cloud the garment thereof, and thick darkness a swaddling band for it, and break up for it my decreed place, and set bars and doors, and said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further, and here shall thy proud waves be stayed. Hast thou commanded the morning since thy days, and caused the day spring to know his place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, that the wicked might be shaken out of it? It is turned as clay to the seal, and they stand as a garment. And from the wicked, from light is withholding, and the high arm shall be broken. Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea? Or hast thou walked in the search of the depth? Have the gates of death been opened unto thee? Or hast thou seen the doors of the shadow of death? Hast thou perceived the breadth of the earth? Declare if thou knowest it all. Where is the way where light dwelleth? And as for darkness, where is the place thereof? So you're noticing a pattern here. Pretty much God's telling these people, how dare any of you speak for me? It's like, none of you should be speaking for me. I've done spoken. Your job is to hear and to obey. And that's true today. Now, we can tell people what God has said. But trying to say who God is, his words say that. The only thing we're supposed to really relay to people is Scripture, what God has already said. Say, God told me this, God told me that. God wrote this, God wrote that. But Elihu was saying a lot more, and he was speaking about the clouds and this, that, and the other, and he is who, God is who brought this and brought that, blah, 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 and da, 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 da. And then he started slandering Job with stuff in the middle of it all. And that angers God greatly. But let's continue on here, verse 20. That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and that thou shouldest know the paths of the house thereof. I kind of stopped in the middle because you had the ending part says, where is the way where light dwelleth? As for darkness, where is the place thereof? That thou shouldest take it to the bound thereof, and that thou shouldest know the paths of the house thereof. Sorry, I started speaking in the middle of something between pages, and I kind of cut up an actual saying there. Didn't mean to. Verse 21. Knowest thou it because thou wast then born? Or because the number of thy days is great? We don't know anything from birth. We have to be taught everything. And we don't have a great number of days. We have limited number of days on earth. And this is where, America is starting to collapse because Satan is coming in with all these people wanting to follow the world, following Satan, and want to delete history. They want to delete our knowledge. They want to delete teachings from wise people because the young people know so much about life. They've done so much as they went to school and then got paid for by college with the loan that they took out, and now they got to pay bills, and oh, woe is me, I don't like it. This is not fair. They know so much, those who have never lived on their own. So they're going to try to tell everyone else how to do things now. Life is a great teacher. This is why welfare and systems of that nature are a sin. There's nothing wrong with helping the needy, but when you give them a lifestyle to live from and they don't have to earn their keep, well, they just produce more lazy people because then they get on the same programs. And, it is a sin when it's done in a sinful way. And if it's allowed, if it actually helps create sin, which welfare in America does, because it tells a man that he can't be the dad of his children and a woman can't be married and she must have children to be on welfare. This, that, and the other, so on and so forth. Anyways, it creates people like this. This is what happens when people have children and don't make their children do chores and earn their keep. When you just keep giving them things, which feminism teaches this, you need to buy your children's affection. You need to give them things so they'll like you. You need to be nice to them so they'll be your friend. and talk to you about things, this is all falseness. This is all worldliness, godliness, and ungodliness at its core. This is pure Satan to destroy the building blocks of what made our societies great. People learned from a young age to earn their keep. I grew up with that. My dad grew up with that. You know, I never got to have any kids, or they would have grown up with that. My sister's kids grew up with that. As you get to a certain age, you start receiving chores to do. The first thing is pick up your room. Eat at the kitchen table. You're not allowed to eat in the living room. You're not allowed to take drinks throughout the house. You have to learn to not make a mess first before you start handling things that can make a mess. Bunch of different things. But what this did is you taught your children the wisdom that you've learned before they become adults. And then they learn more wisdom as they are becoming adults from what you taught them and then what they're going to add to it as they learn. And societies are supposed to keep growing upward with knowledge. And now Satan's like, they're too smart. We got to bring them down. So that's when they brought in feminism and everything else, took dads out of the home or made them irrelevant. You know, kids don't listen to daddy no more. We've got all these TV shows making the dad seem like some boob, some good for nothing, a joke, that the mom's the real smart one, this, that, and the other. You know, even a show Roseanne from the 80s I like did the same thing. Now, Dan in the show was very smart, but he would make mistakes and this, that, and the other. But every once in a while they corrected things, and Roseanne would make mistakes too. But for the most part, she always seemed like the wisest one. You know, as I said, this stuff's been going on for a long time to program society. Do not listen to men, but God commands that it is men that are to be the teachers. So people started seeking women to teach them because the men aren't smart enough. And to the point that women took over the education system in America and now teaching it in a way that makes the children even dumber. They can take a test and test well, but then they don't remember anything that they've learned. So, anyways, this is how human beings are to teach greatness over decades, over generations, is by teaching their young. But that's not happening no more. So it's either you live for a very long time to be as wise as God, because God's been around forever. He created everything, you know, and if you're not one of that, don't be speaking for him. But let's continue on here, 22. Hast thou entered into the treasures of the snow, or hast thou seen the treasures of the hail, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against the day of battle and war? By what way is the light parted, which scattereth the east wind upon the earth? Who hath divided a water course for the overflowing of waters, or a way for the lightning of thunder? So notice here in 23, that God speaks of, he knew battles and wars were going to happen, and, you know, he helps people in those matters. Why? Because he knew evil was going to be on the earth until the earth's made new again. Right now, the earth is under the rule of Satan. And as long as Satan is over the earth, it's called being worldly. And as long as worldliness exists, there's going to be evil on the earth. So, prepare for that. Continue on here, 26. To cause it to rain on the earth where no man is, on the wilderness wherein there is no man, to satisfy the desolate and waste ground, and to cause the bud of the tender herb to spring forth. Hath the rain a father, or who hath begotten the drops of dew? Out of whose womb came the ice, and the hoary frost of heaven, who hath gendered it? So if you notice in a pattern here, it's talking about, you know, these things exist, but they have no parents. He created them. And he always creates them. He created the system that makes them happen. But now you got everybody wanting to teach about evolution. Yeah, women brought that into our school systems too, teaching about evolution because they don't want to answer to God. It's like, well, if I don't believe in God, then God can't punish me. Wrong. Way, way wrong. When you pass away, you can believe whatever you want to, but God's going to you're either going to spend eternity with God, or you're going to be cast into hell. And if you don't serve the Lord, and you're not saved, gifted with the Holy Ghost, and bow to the Master, which means you read Word, obey it, learn it, study it, live it, breathe it, eat it, then God has no use for you. You're not going to be with him. But anyways, continue on 31. I'm sorry. Nope. Sorry, 30. The waters are hid as with the stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? I keep forgetting. Pleiades. These are, of course, these are constellations. The Orion belt. Talking about stars in the sky. It's also the way that they navigated. They learned constellations, that the stars always stayed, and so they can navigate at nighttime on ships in the water when they had no markers or anything to look upon. They could navigate through, that's what he's talking about here, the influences of the constellations. 32. Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? Canst thou lift up thy voice to the clouds, that abundance of waters may cover thee? Canst thou send lightnings, that they may go and say unto thee, Here we are? Who hath put wisdom in the inward parts, or who hath given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds in wisdom, or who can stay the bottles of heaven? When the dusk groweth into darkness, and the clods cleave fast together, wilt thou hunt the prey for the lion, or fill the appetite of the young lions? When they couch in their dens, and abide in the covert to lie in wait, who provideth for the raven his food, when his young ones cry unto God? They wonder for lack of meat. Chapter 39. Knowest thou the time when the wild goats of the rock bring forth? Or canst thou mark when the hinds do calve? Canst thou number the months that they fulfill, or knowest thou the time when they bring forth? They bow themselves, they bring forth their young ones, they cast out their sorrows. Their young ones are in good liking, they grow up with corn, they go forth and return not unto them. Who hath sent out the wild ass free, or who hath loosed the bands of the wild ass? Whose house I have made the wilderness, and the barren land his dwellings. He scorneth the multitude of the city, neither regardeth he the crying of the driver. The range of the mountains is his pasture, and he searcheth after every green thing. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee, or abide by thy crib? Now, like we said, we talked about this before. Some people says unicorn. We think of unicorn as a horse with a horn sticking out of it. That's a mythical creature. They've already did determinants and found out unicorn was a horned animal, which would be a rhinoceros. So and when you're reading King James, just replace the word unicorn with the word we use today, a rhinoceros. The rhinoceros is not going to serve anybody. It can't be tamed. It's vicious. it's, lions don't even risk attacking it. They try and normally lose unless they have a massive pack that can, outweigh it. It's like trying to take on a hippo. A lot of things try it, but they normally fail. Even the crocodiles and stuff of that nature don't even mess with the hippo. They lose the fight. But it's kind of the same, but anyways, I just want to say that there. So, will the rhinoceros be willing to serve thee or abide by thy crib? They will destroy the crib and the baby in it, not even caring that there is a baby in there. So a rhinoceros, they're very territorial. Anyways, you get the idea. Verse 10. Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow, or will he harrow the valleys after thee? Wilt thou trust him because his strength is great, or wilt thou leave thy labor to him? Wilt thou believe him that he will bring home thy seed and gather it into thy barn? So that's what they've tried it in the past, of trying to take a rhinoceros and make a work animal out of them, and no, they just always end up having to let it go or put it down if they even tried. The ox was far better suited for that, but let's continue on here. 13. Gavest thou the goodly wings unto the peacocks, or wings and feathers unto the ostrich, which leaveth her eggs in the earth, and warmeth them in dust, and forgetteth that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them? She is hardened against her young ones, as though they were not hers. Her labor is in vain without fear, because God hath deprived her of wisdom, neither hath he imparted to her understanding. What time she lifted up herself on high, she scorneth the horse and his rider. So we're going back to the rhino part with the or unicorn, scripture says, but we know it means rhino. The reason for it is like, are you going to trust these things in the wild to be over you or to help you, or are you going to trust me? Are you going to listen to me? It's like talking about the peacock, how the peacock can't be trusted. The peacock don't even care about its young. It's a beautiful creature when it has its looks and this, that, and the other, but other than that, it's not really useful for much of anything. It's just part of nature. If it says here, so what time she lifted up herself on high, she scorneth the horse and his rider. It's like, if a peacock has their choice about it, it's like a Canadian goose. They'll attack you. That's what they do. These are wild creatures. Anyways, you get the idea. Trusting God, not nature, not the world. Verse 19. Hast thou given the horse strength? Hast thou clothed his neck with thunder? Canst thou make him afraid as a grasshopper? The glory of his nostrils is terrible. He paweth in the valley, and rejoiceth in his strength. He goeth on to meet the armed men. Yeah, they wore horses. They rode horses in battle. They'd be taught to be, there were weapons at the same time, plus ways of getting around, this, that, and the other. But normally most people walked. They had horses for specific things, but you get the idea. Verse 22. He mocketh at fear, and is not affrighted, neither turneth he back from the sword. The quiver rattleth against him, the glittering spear and the shield. He swalloweth the ground with fierceness and rage, neither believeth he that it is the sound of the trumpet. Yeah, horses, when you train them from a young age for battle or this, that, and the other, the people in America, they rode horses. They could hunt from them. They battled from them. Horses didn't care what, if they were trained to it. They didn't fear anything. It's just. But most animals have a natural fear. Horses really don't. It can be trained out of them, but it has to be started at a young age. But anyways, Continue on 25. He saith among the trumpets, Ha ha! And he smelleth the battle afar off, the thunder of the captains and the shouting. Doth the hawk fly by thy wisdom, and stretch her wings toward the south? Doth the eagle mount up at thy command, and make her nest on high? She dwelleth and abideth on the rock, upon the crag of the rock, and the strong place. From thence she seeketh the prey, and her eyes behold afar off. Her young ones also suck up blood, and where the slain are, there is she. That's the end of this lesson today. We'll be finishing up Job next lesson, and then after that we start Psalms. But as I said, God will be coming to speak to Job and telling him things, and pretty much God's given him to share his wisdom with the people that think that they have a right to speak on God's behalf. And, especially this Elihu is mostly who he's speaking to. God created all the creatures and programmed them to live their lives. Only human beings choose. Everything else is programmed. Some things can be taught to be work animals. We've been using them for centuries. And so forth. And some animals can't be taught. They can't be made pets. They're not loyal like dogs. They're not useful like farm cats, barn cats as they're called. They keep the grains and stuff free of rats, mice, pests, even birds, even bugs. Cats are very good at that. They'll eat just about everything. They'll kill just about everything. You got a herd of cats in a farmland, there ain't gonna be much insects or birds around. They'll just hunt them for fun at times, play them to death. But anyways, I'm just saying, everything else is pretty much pre-programmed. Some things can be taught things, but human beings are the only ones that was created to have free will, free to choose, because we're the only ones with a soul. Animals are animals. I'm very attached to my pets. Other people are as well, but they won't be in heaven. Sorry. Their earth is, everything they have. Their life, that's it. But other than that, we have an eternity. Make sure you choose the right master, because most people choose the world. They think they choose themselves, but they're actually choosing the world. They're not choosing wisdom. They're choosing pleasure. As I said, talking about the youth today and how they're growing up, they're wanting to bring in slavery, and they're calling it socialism and communism, and they don't realize that it's going to make them the slaves. They don't want to call it slavery, but they want someone else to fund their life, which is slavery. No matter how you slice and dice it, when you want someone else to pay for your life so you don't have to, you're wanting somebody to provide for you when it's your job to provide for yourself. If you're a woman, your job is to get a husband and provide children and let the man be the provider. If you try to do life on your own, but you had choices to be a wife, well, then you're living ungodly. There's some women that just aren't marriage material from birth, looks wise or this, that, and the other, and they normally end up just becoming servants. But trust me, that woman probably desired very greatly to have a family, to be a wife, but very bitter in her heart when it didn't happen. So she decided to make other people's lives miserable too, because misery loves company. This is why we listen to Scripture instead of people, because people will lead you astray. God will never lead you astray. These are the things you pray about. Pray for yourself, others, lost, the found, all people, all nations, everywhere, everything. Always pray. Never cease praying. Pray to God about everything before all decisions. Give him all praise, glory, and worship and thanks and everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent. Like I said, that's the end of this lesson here today. So until next time, God bless, good day, and goodbye.